Whenever the media gives you an information, it is not advisable that you immediately take that information and become reactive, because the media gives you information in ways that appeal to your emotions. They come after your emotions. Whenever they pass an information, majority of the time, BBC, CNN, they appeal to your emotions. They either want to make you feel angry, sad, happy. They basically want to control your emotions, because they know if they control your emotions, they control you. Now, I came across this video for since the start of the Ukraine and Russia war. I've been doing some research. I've been, following up to some level. And I came across this video that I want you to see. Ukrainian soldiers captured these Russian soldiers, captured this Ukrainian soldier. And he is a civilian. He was a civilian and he was forced to be in the army for the sake of the war. Why do you think that Ukraine would do this? Because they are running out of people, they are running out of soldiers. Take a look at this video.
И бригады.
Командир подразделения Александр, позывной Мария.
Как?
Мария.
Мари?
Мария.
Мария.
Нет.
Ларри.
Мелкий. Мария.
Мария.
Мароя.
Понял, понятно. Дальше.
Дальше Ленов,
Веном кто?
командир роты.
УТ?
Командир роты.
Командир роты Веном, да?
Да.
Имя, фамилию, отчество знаешь?
Нет, только позывные.
Только позывные.
Камбрига знаешь?
Камбрик.
Знаю только, что Зора.
Зоро, да, позывной?
Да, и все.
Понятно.
Все, да, больше не знаешь.
Да, вот это
Нахуя пошел воевать?
заставили.
Заставили?
Его в тюрьму на 15 лет.
А с какого города ты сам?
Из Сумской области, город Шостка.
Шустка. Жена, дети есть?
Гражданская жена есть.
А дети?
Детей еще немного.
Че, нормально пока держишься?
А ты говорил, что ты с Воронежского что-то села или что-то?
Нет, це Воронеж, поселок.
Понятно. Так, этот. Вас дохуя, нет?
У нас было 10 человек.
Нет, а всего здесь дохуя вас в этом районе?
Я не знаю.
Не знаешь?
Нам только сказали, что и 10
Так,
человек.
а у вас есть исходный район, там, где подготавливают?
Полигон, хуён.
У Донецкой области мы были.
Под Донецкой областью?
Да, потом нас на машинах перекинули
По карте
сюда.
сможешь показать, да?
Я знаю город Терны.
Терны?
Да.
Ого, братан, вы полупидоры меня когда-то оттуда выбили нахуй.
Нет.
Ну я знаю, что не ты, может и ты, но я знаю, что вы меня оттуда выбили нахуй.
Я...
В Красной Лимане был?
Нет.
Нет?
Сколько воюешь?
Ну, у Тернах находились, месяц стояли.
Месяц?
Да.
Все понятно,
Просто
давай.
ты воюешь?
Нет.
Так, ага. В Киеве был? Нет. Мобилизовали, да, заставили?
Да.
Понятно.
Now, what I would say is that I've always known that since the start of this war, there is something absolutely wrong. Something is not right with the information that is being passed. I have another video to share with you. In this war, if you go online and if you Google this Ukraine-Russia war, Wikipedia and BBC and all the other sites will give you casualties. And they will give you casualties and show you that Russians are losing this war. They will tell you 70 something thousand Russians have died between this period to this period. 30 something thousand Ukrainian soldiers have died within this period to this period. But the truth is, Ukraine is heavily losing, and Ukraine has lost over 300,000 people. over 300,000 men, over 300,000 soldiers in this war. Now they tell you that they are counting. But how did BBC and CNN count the bodies of dead Russians? How did they count dead Russian soldiers? Now the thing is, I have a video here I want to show you. This is a man, Scott Ritter, and he was formerly, he was in the US Army. He was in charge of the operation to take out weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in the 90s. And he speaks on the Russia-Ukraine war. He spoke on it's a podcast on the Fresh and Fit, and it's a podcast that went on for about 4 hours. Very extensive podcast and very detailed. And he speaks on the loss of the Ukraine army. And I want you to actually take a listen to this.
After he invaded, the whole purpose of the invasion was to get the Ukrainians back to the negotiating table. That's all Putin wanted to do, get them to negotiate. And it almost worked. They had 3 meetings in Gomel, Belarus in early March. Why? Because the Russians scared the living crap out of Zelensky with their invasion.
Yep.
So they sent the team in, they negotiated. They had a treaty ready to sign on 1 April. Ladies and gentlemen, just think about this for a second. The Ukrainians initialed the treaty. They signed the treaty. We know now because Putin actually brought the documents up, showed it to the African peace delegation that came in and said, why aren't you negotiating with the Ukrainians? He said, guys, we've been trying to negotiate from day one. They aren't serious about it. They signed this treaty. We were ready to sign it. The United States and Great Britain told Zelensky, don't.
Wow.
Because we want to send you billions of dollars of military aid to continue this war. Over 350,000 Ukrainian soldiers have died.
That's what the casualties are at now? 300,000?
350,000.
350,000.
About 310,000 of them.
Where does that number come from for the people? Because I know they're going to ask, where does that number come from?
Well, the number comes from the Ukrainians who are acknowledging
Okay.
the big
Comes
numbers.
from Ukrainians themselves.
Well, I mean, the numbers come from crunching the data.
Okay.
The Ukrainians have for long said they haven't suffered many, but now they're coming out saying we've suffered more dead than you can possibly imagine. They won't give a number to it. But if you run the numbers, if you run the battles, if you talk to the mothers, people have gone in and they're the families are saying, where's my husband? Where's my son? Also, the missing, etc. The numbers come up to around 350,000.
Okay.
We know that Yevgeny Prigozhin's
Bare minimum 350.
yeah, because there's missing and things of that. Prigozhin, who we talk about, Wagner, in the battle for Bakhmut earlier this year, they've killed 75,000, and that's counted bodies. 75,000 Ukrainians physically counted by them. So that's a lot. They just killed 13,000 Ukrainians at the first 2.5 weeks of this counteroffensive, counted bodies. So these are big numbers, guys, a lot of numbers. And the point I'm trying to make is they would all be alive today.
Yeah.
If we had allowed that peace treaty to be signed. And the peace treaty that Putin was going for was basically just to say, look, the Donbass is independent. You guys blew it. We can't let it go back to you. They're Russians. They're going to be independent. Crimea is ours.
Yep.
But everything else goes back to you. You can't join NATO, but we will allow you to have security guarantees from the United States, Great Britain, and elsewhere. We'll guarantee your security. That's all we want.
Now, from what I see, the Ukrainians are heavily losing on this war. But the media is painting the narrative that the Russians are losing this war. But that is not true. Absolutely not true. I'm not saying Russian soldiers are not dying. Of course, Russians have lost soldiers in this war. Russians have lost soldiers. But here's the thing. According to extensive research, the Russians have not lost up to 100,000 soldiers in this war. The Russians have not lost up to 100,000 soldiers in this war. But the Ukrainians have lost massively in this war. But they keep going and they are recruiting civilians, forcing young men to go into the army, to the war front and die. Why is this happening? Why is Ukraine fighting this war? And the funny thing is, like Scott said, they reached an agreement, but the US and NATO are basically the reason why this war is still going on. The US and NATO is fueling this war because they are funding the war. Zelensky is getting billions. Oh, I've seen news on the internet of his wife going on shopping spa. You know, his wife is somewhere in somewhere in Europe. You know, Zelensky is getting billions. By the end of this war, Zelensky will be pretty rich. And Zelensky is a Jew. That says a lot. And you may not understand why I said that, but in one of the coming videos, we might actually look into that. The Jews. I don't want to speak more on that because YouTube might take down this video if I say anything more than that, because I need the Jews. So I don't know anything about the Jews for now. But this war should have, from the start of the war, should have ended because there was an agreement. But they didn't reach that agreement because NATO said Ukraine should not sign. And the reason for this invasion of Russia, a lot of people do not know why Russia invaded Ukraine. A lot of people do not know. A lot of people just have the narrative. A lot of people, sometimes I go on the internet, you know, I go on some website and you see people insulting and abusing Putin, saying he's the Hitler of the 21st century and all that bullshit. Well, you are ignorant of a lot of things, so you don't understand. Russia is only being counter-reactive based on something that has happened in the past. It's a very long story, but in the past, Russia has been to Mexico and been to Cuba. And Russia initially wanted to bring weapons, nuclear weapons, to Cuba, to Mexico. It was the border of America, and America didn't want that. America said no. Now, the same thing is happening now because Russia doesn't want Ukraine. I'm telling you, if you don't know, you know, I'm just giving you the basics. Russia doesn't want Ukraine to be a part of NATO. Because if Ukraine becomes a part of NATO, the NATO and the United States can bring in weapons of mass destruction into Ukraine. And Ukraine is on the border of Russia, is a threat to Russia. Russia sees that as a threat, and they do not want that. By the end of the Second World War, the Soviet Union had reached an agreement with Europe that they would not extend NATO, that they would not push NATO extensively towards Russia. It was an agreement, they agreed. But from the time of the World War till now, Europe, British have moved NATO further and further towards Russia. And at this point, they are trying to enter Ukraine. And this is where Russia says, no, that will not happen. If you come in, we will invade Ukraine. And that's exactly what happened. If you do not know the details of the war, you might have the wrong picture. You see, in war, there is no good guy and there is no bad guy. In this war, I don't know of the good guy. But I know that for sure the bad guy is America and NATO, who is fueling the destruction of people. I have seen videos extensively. Like, I've seen videos of the front line of this war. I've seen soldiers die. I've seen missiles being dropped on soldiers. I've seen the videos online on very graphic websites. You see soldiers being destroyed. These are men, these are family people. And over the course of this war, Ukraine and Russia have both lost people. And it is not funny. And these people, these men, these powerful nations are playing with the lives of people. Based on their pursuit of power and control, the grass is suffering. And the grass is the average man. The average people are suffering for the mistakes or for the greed of power of the elites. The poor people are suffering it. And in this war, I'm going to tell you, whenever you hear informations about Ukraine, and the Russia war from BBC, CNN, and the likes. Review those informations carefully, because what you heard is not completely true. Every information that is being pushed out to the public has been refined, heavily refined, edited to suit whatever they want the public to hear or know. The casualties they tell you, it's all a lie, it's all bullshit. It's all a lie, and it is not true. I can leave a link to the podcast where you can watch Scott Ritter. Actually, I'll leave a link in the comments where you can see him. You can listen to him actually give out these informations about the Russia-Ukraine war and what happened with the 9/11 and the Iraqi weapons of mass destruction, if you're interested.